All right, good evening. Before we begin, this is a reminder that this is also a remote meeting and teleconference using Zoom pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 403-A. Welcome to the Sanford Planning Board meeting for March 15th, 2023. The meeting will come to order. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are offered. Please notify the chair if you are unable to hear or see something. Please note that if any planning board members have a potential conflict of interest of which they are aware, they will disclose the conflict prior to the board initiating a hearing or action on an application. All persons speaking will be asked to state your name and address and then proceed. At the sole discretion of the chair, public testimony may be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. For each item, the applicant will be asked to describe the project. Therefore, the chair will ask for proponents of the project to speak, followed by opponents, and then those who are neither for nor against, but who may want to ask a question or make a general comment. Everyone who wants will have an opportunity to speak to the board through the chair. Any questions must go to and through the chair, who will then decide at what point to either ask staff or the applicant to respond. The chair may wait until after testimony is concluded to seek answers to any questions that are raised by the public or board members. Please note that rudeness, uncivil behavior, clapping, cheering, and booing, etc., will not be tolerated, and if these behaviors occur, the chair at his sole discretion may terminate the hearing and reschedule it for another date. In addition, the chair at his sole discretion will limit repetitious comments, though it is entirely appropriate for an individual to indicate that he or she agrees with the previous speaker. Prior to closing the public hearing, the chair will ask if there are any new comments. Then the applicant will be allowed to make a single rebuttal in response to the testimony which was provided. Once the public hearing portion of the meeting is closed, the chair will accept no additional public comment. However, a member of the board at the chair's discretion may ask the applicant or a member of the public to respond to a question. This will not reopen public comment. Planning board decisions are based solely on whether an applicant has provided sufficient evidence to meet the requirements of local, state, and federal laws. In this regard, public testimony is most effective when it considers the impacts of a project in light of Sanford's subdivision, site plan, shoreland, or zoning ordinances, and any other relevant regulations. After the board discusses the merits of each project, it will vote on written findings of facts. Since the findings may substantially affect any appeals rights, also, as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting not leave until the board has adopted the findings for the project you are interested in. After the planning board makes its final decision, any reconsideration by the board must be made at the next regularly scheduled meeting. If anyone wishes to appeal the board's final decision, he or she must do so within 30 days. The city's ordinance and comprehensive plan are available for viewing on the city's website and in the Planning and Development Department's office at 919 Main Street. Remember, this is a public proceeding. You have the right to hear and see what is happening, and we welcome public participation. All right, good evening. I'll just pull the agenda out here. So first item on the agenda is new business, file number R5-91, Nassau Apartments, final major subdivision and zone change. Jamie, before we get the applicant up, do you want to center us on this?
Good evening, everybody. I actually split the zone change and the final major subdivision up into two categories because I thought it was going to get confusing. We have two different zone changes to hear tonight. So I gave reports as three separate items. So I'm not sure exactly which order you want to take them. I think we could do the major subdivision site plan first, and then single family to urban, and then urban to contract, if that's all right with you guys.
Yeah, I think that'll be fine. Thank you.
Excellent. So tonight, the applicants are proposing to construct 83 market rate 1 and 2 bedroom apartments on tax map R5, lots 70, 91, and 94, located at 16 Summer Street in Springvale. This will include the renovation of 3 existing vacant dormitory buildings into market rate housing while upgrading existing infrastructure, including sewer, water, fire services, and improving the surrounding grounds. Just wanted to make you guys aware, the applicants held a community forum last Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. as they did before the preliminary subdivision. It was well-attended, mostly by the same group of people. There was one new family there. The discussion went well. They had similar questions and concerns as the first time. Their consultant was there this time and was able to answer most of the questions, as well as Alex and myself answered some, and the developers answered some. So at the end of the meeting, I think everybody left in good spirits.
You ready to present your
Yeah, we're ready. Should I divulge my conflict first?
potential? Yes, go ahead,
Potential
please.
conflict. I just want to put it on the record that some of the land for this project was sold by my parents to the developer, but the deal is done. It's up to you folks whether that's a conflict of interest or whether I should recuse myself.
You don't, what's that?
You didn't benefit financially.
You're not benefiting financially from this development. This deal was done before this, so I don't see one. Does anybody else have an issue?
All right.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Jamie, and the planning board for having us back tonight.
Could you
So,
please just state your name and address
Yes.
for the record, please?
Nate Green, and address 53 Astor Lane, Cape Elizabeth, Maine. The address of the project, 43 Summer Street, Springville. I'm here along with my business partner, Chris, the other half of Green Mars, Chris Marshall, and then our consultant, Jeff Oliva, Civil Consultants. So I guess I'll start off by saying, just in reference to the community meeting on Sunday, thank you to Jamie and Alex for showing up to that. It was really nice to have them there, have the city's support, and help answer some of the questions the residents had. We probably had 20 people there, so it was a pretty good turnout. All right, so getting into our presentation, Nassau Apartments, the formerly upper 1-2 Prior Hussey buildings. Just a brief summary. Built in the 60s, student dormitories for Nassau College until 1983, and since 1983, 40 years now, they have been vacant. And they're still barely standing. So after our preliminary hearing with the planning board, one of the main concerns from the planning board and from residents was traffic. We had a lengthy discussion, and the recommendation that you guys had for us was to seek a traffic engineer to actually give some real numbers and real data from a stamped engineer's perspective of the traffic impact of the development. So that's what we did. We hired Bill Bray. He's been a traffic engineer in the area for 40 years. Traffic Solutions is his company. And basically, the things that he looked at for the site were, he looked at crash data, he looked at trips, and he looked at the way that the traffic flows through the neighborhood. And the letter that he provided to us is found in our submission packet. But basically, in summary, the peak trips, which you can see on this slide right here, are AM peak trips 46, PM peak trips 38. Like we talked about before, 100 peak trips is considered the kickoff point to kick off like a real DOT traffic study, and that's the threshold that they say is where you start to need those kind of things. So we're well below that. And then Bill's synopsis of the traffic study is that the sight distances from where the cars turn out of both exits are really clear. So basically it's easy for cars to safely turn in and out onto King Street and onto Kirk Street. And the ability of cars to go Rankin Street, Kirk Street, out Summer Street, out the new entrance, really diversify the traffic in all these different ways that the impact to the neighborhood would be negligible. So we're happy to find that information, and we're also happy to share that information with residents of the town at the public meeting we had last weekend. So they all wanted to see that real data, as did you guys. So that was critical. The next critical piece that we wanted to talk about tonight with the project was the water supply issue. We had a lot of back and forth with the water district regarding this. So basically, after the preliminary meeting, the recommendation the water district had was to test the fire hydrants on Kirk Street to see the water flow so we could figure out if there was adequate water on site to take these 83 apartments with the fire service, the new fire hydrants, and all the things that go along with that. And the test showed that there was adequate water flow for the fire suppression system, but the challenge was when you add the fire suppression system with the potential to have to run the fire hydrants at the same time, then there may not be adequate water flow for that. So you can see in our updated site plan, there's a looped water system coming in from King Street and then looping through the site and coming out Summer Street. So that will provide adequate water flow for hydrants, fire suppression system, and everything going off at all the same time, which is good. And then the other part to that was important to the water district was, in fact, having an 8-inch water main going through the site. And obviously that's important because at some point we potentially would like this to be a public road. And in order for it to be a public road, then you need an 8-inch water main going through. So we updated the plans to show those things. There were a few comments from the code enforcement memo that we just wanted to address in our presentation. The first one being the snow storage. That was a concern, and it was also a concern from the board last time, so we wanted to talk about that. We show in our updated plan set snow storage in all different parts of the site, and our engineer Jeff took into consideration the stormwater runoff and the potential contaminants from the piles of snow. So those are all placed properly with our stormwater plan, and you can see them throughout the site. Another code enforcement remark we wanted to talk about was the parking spots in front of Prior Hussey. There was a concern that there's not enough room in front of Prior Hussey to have those spots next to the roadway. And we were already over our allotted amount of parking spaces we needed. So we just elected to take those out of our site plan just to make things simpler. There wasn't really a use for them. We just had them in there because they were there in 1970. So, and lastly, the other comment from the planning department on our application is we talked about trails with you guys and the public multiple times, and we failed to show it on the plans, which is not something we wanted to do. The trails are an important part of this project for us. So we updated our plan set for now just to show a stone dust path directing from behind Hanscom Hall up to the rail trail. So that will connect the property with the rail trail. We intend to do a lot more paths around the property, kind of what we showed you guys in preliminary, but none of that's set in stone yet, and we intend to work with Sanford Trails in the future and fully develop the property to include public access trails all throughout. But for now, we do show that stone path to the rail trail that's at least connecting the property to the rail trail so the public can walk through the property. And that's all we have for now. So if you guys have questions or comments, we're happy to talk through them.
Thank you. So before we pick this up, I think we need to do a public hearing. We do a public hearing on this, right? Right, so I will open up the public hearing, and I will offer an opportunity for anybody who wants to speak besides the applicant on behalf of this project, in the room or on Zoom.
Hi, Planning Board. This is Mary Hastings from the Growth Council. I'd like to speak in favor of the project.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So coming from the Growth Council, of course, we've been really excited about this project. I've been in the Sanford Growth Council now almost 4 years. So even when Jen Nyman was here, and that was the talk of getting the Nassau dorms redeveloped. I just think this is a great project for the neighborhood. I think the developers are also a huge part of this. They've been just a joy to work with. They've listened to the comments from from their neighborhood, and they've incorporated, all the things that people have asked about. So I think between the developer and now having these units developed from an economic growth standpoint, I think there'll be other businesses that will come up in the village that will want to service these new residents that are there. So all the way around, having a new project, not having those fallow buildings in that neighborhood anymore, I just think this is going to be a great project for that neighborhood, and I can't wait for it to go forward.
All right, thank you, Mary. Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak in favor of this project? Right, is there anyone in the room or on Zoom that would like to speak in opposition to this project? You either unmute or raise your hand. Right, is there anyone who would like to speak neither for nor against this project, but would like to ask a question or make a comment? All right, hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And we'll move on to Planning Board thoughts, comments, questions.
I was just looking at the notes, and I think from the notes I think it was 28 King and 20 King Street. Have we addressed their concerns on the buffering?
Yeah, we show a fence along that line, that property line, a 6-foot wooden fence.
So it is going to be a fence?
Yep.
Wooden fence? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I just wanted to actually have a comment and then a question. The comment is, I just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time to go over the traffic study again. I was like a huge component of that, and it was very important to me, so I was thrilled when I was reading through the packet of information. So thank you for doing that. That makes me feel a lot better. Sounds like the residents of the street kind of agree with me as well, which is awesome, so good job. Thank you for that. My question is in regards to the snow piles. That looks great, but my only question is there any concern for flooding? So once the snow melts, because I see you allocated different piles, right?
Yep.
So instead of like one big mound, is there any concern for flooding as it melts? Like, 'cause isn't there wetlands?
Yeah. Jeff, do you want to take that?
Good evening. Jeff Leva, Civil Consultants. So when we do look at the snow melting in those areas, typically it's melting over a longer period of time. Some of these different areas are adjacent to parking lots, so some of them will drain back into the parking lot and then go through the stormwater system. Others are off to the side where they'll go through the wooded vegetation, and then eventually they will go to a wetland in that area. But typically we don't see kind of flooding from the snow piles itself. But in our stormwater analysis, we look at the different storm events that are required by the state, DEP, and by your city ordinance as well. So we accommodate both stormwater quality improvements that are going to happen on the property and flooding standards for drainage. So when we look at that, we encompass, a heavy storm rain event, 25-year storm event coming through. But with respect to melting snow piles, there was a comment that came up with at the community meeting. And one of the things that we're looking to do is on that, I want a butter that's right near King Street, is when we're doing some of the earthwork, we can kind of build a little berm to protect that snow melting so it doesn't go onto their property and it stays on our area where it directs it through the woods and then through the system afterwards.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Any other comments from anybody else on the board?
I'll just say quickly, I grew up in that neighborhood. This is a huge, huge thing for that neighborhood. It's well needed. Those buildings were there my whole life. They were rotting in the woods. I may or may not have been in them once or twice as a child. I have no comment on that, but this is a good project.
All right, thank you. I just had a couple items that were listed earlier on this week. I just want to get some clarification on them. Subdivision plan, including the combination of the three lots into one. Has that been completed and submitted?
Yeah, Chris, do you know the answer to that? Sorry, what was the question? The subdivision combining the 3 lots into one.
So our intention, I'm not recalling the numbers right now, but you can see the property connecting to King Street. I believe it's 70, and then the primary lot, which has the 3 buildings on it already, is 91, I believe, R591, R570. Those will be combined to avoid the need for any easements or anything like that. R594 is across that tributary and not connected to the development on those 3 buildings. So that will probably be left alone as a standalone property, but it shouldn't have any easement implications.
Okay, thank you. Concerns by the water district, you touched on the size of the water mains coming up the street. There were a number of other issues there that they called out in their March 8th memo to you. Just want to go through those.
Yeah.
Have you go through those and share what?
Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind.
Yeah,
Nate.
absolutely, yeah.
I've been working with Keith at the sewer district. I've got an email that came through where we've addressed all those technical changes on there, making sure that we showed the proper embedment depth for the pipe in those areas. So the last email I got late in the afternoon, I haven't had a chance to send it to Jamie or Matt yet, was that he didn't have any other issues with our utility plan that showed the water line on there. We had the proper notes indicating that we needed an 8x8 T where the new 8-inch line is going to connect on King Street. And then the down by at the end on Summer, that's an existing 6-inch water line that we're going to tie to. So then we need to expand that onto our property with an 8-inch line on that. So we've addressed all those issues that came out of that TRC meeting. And then tomorrow morning, I'll make sure I send and copy the email from Keith to Jamie and to Matt that indicates that he has no other further questions.
Okay, great. I know that's one of our conditions of approval if we continue this down the path. Just wanted to make sure we weren't getting any surprises, or you weren't going to get any surprises going down the path, going down the road with this. There was a couple items I think we've already talked about: snow storage and being adjacent to wetlands, and also a concern by the engineering regarding the stormwater treatment. I don't know what they are, what those off the top of my head. I don't know if, Matt, you want to speak to any of that and where you are in those?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working with with Jeff right along the whole project here, and in the latest submission, in I guess the official submission, there were some pages missing with just the really technical details and specifications of the ponds. He sent them to me. I've seen them. They look great. And in connection with my other comment with the DEP permitting, they're waiting on some things for that. So basically those details and specifications aren't technically finalized yet. I don't suspect, from everything I've seen and everything I've heard, I don't suspect it's going to change anything with the site layout or anything like that. It'll just be maybe some tweaking with the sizes of the ponds and stuff. But yeah, I'm sure Jeff could probably speak to it even more as far as what's in flux with DEP and soil testing and such.
So as we're going through our DEP stormwater permit application here, we have to do some test pits for verifying some of the soils near our bioretention areas. We were ready to do that, then we had clear open forest, no snow, then we've had snow ever since, so we pulled them back. So what we did in the submission that was provided to the town and what we're working on is assuming the worst case scenario for the soils in those bioretention and stormwater areas. So we've sized those to be the worst case on the plan. Once we do the test pits and if the soils are a little bit better, there's a chance that some of those may be just shrunk down a little bit. But if anything, that would be the only change that would be in some of those bioretention areas. They wouldn't get any bigger. Any of the changes wouldn't affect any of the roadway placement or parking or layout that you see on there. It would be just maybe some of the invert elevations and some of the pipes in those stormwater areas. But we're working on that aspect of it to get that finalized so that we can get everything, all the approvals back to you folks in the city and work with the DEP.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I guess the last one still puts you back on the was you had a comment about performance guarantees and meeting those requirements.
Yeah, that's right. Since I made the comment, I've actually received a construction estimate from the applicant. Got some tweaking to do with them, but for the most part, that looks like in good shape.
All right, I don't have anything else. Did my talking points spur any ideas or concerns from the board? All right, I think we're ready to get to findings of facts then. Jack's favorite.
I did try to combine them a little bit for you guys tonight to speed it up a little bit. I can't guarantee I did it perfect, but we're learning. Okay. The first group is 275-10-43 floodplain, 275-10-48 spaghetti lots, and 280-16-7.19 airport. And those are all not in those districts, and the standard is not applicable.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? None. Carries 7-0.
The second group is 275-10-32 water supply, 275-10-33 water system, 275-10-36 sewage disposal, 280-16-7.8 water supply, 280-16-7.9 sewerage disposal. And those are recommended to meet the conditions because the proposed plans demonstrate that there is adequate water supply and sewerage disposal to support the proposed development and shall not negatively impact the existing water supply or sanitary waste disposal systems.
Motion to approve.
Second, Oliver?
All in favor? All opposed? None. 7-0.
The next group is 275-10-34 erosion, 275-10-45 stormwater, 275-10-47 phosphorus, 280-16-7.6 stormwater, 280-16-7.7 erosion, and 280-16-7.12. And those are all recommended to meet the standard because adequate provisions have been made for stormwater management, including best management practices.
Motion to approve.
Second, Oliver?
All in favor? 7-0.
The next group is 280-16-7.2 access to the site, 280-16-7.3 access into the site, 280-16-7.5, and pedestrian circulation. And again, it is recommended that they meet because the development will not create hazards to vehicular or pedestrian traffic and is designed to minimize impact.
Motion to approve.
Apologize, I have not been asking if there's any comments on this. Motion to, sorry. All in favor? None opposed, 7-0.
And unfortunately, we do have quite a few singulars left, but 275-10-37, solid waste, recommend it meets the condition because solid waste is proposed to be deposited into enclosed dumpsters and removed by a private contractor.
Motion to accept?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor? None opposed, 7-0.
275-10-38, impact on aesthetics, open space, historic areas, wildlife habitat, and shoreline access is recommended to meet because the proposed development shall not negatively impact aesthetics, open spaces, historic areas, wildlife habitat, or shoreline access.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any comments? All in favor? None opposed.
275-10-39, conformance with other regulations is recommended to meet because the proposed subdivision meets all minimum dimensional requirements, performance standards, and all other applicable land use regulations outlined in Chapter 275 and Chapter 280.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any comments? All in favor? 7-0.
275-10-40, financial and technical capacity is recommended to meet the standard because the applicant has demonstrated financial and technical capacity to complete the proposed subdivision.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any comments? All in favor? None opposed, 7-0. 275-10-41, impact on water quality and shoreline is recommended meets the standard because the proposed subdivision will not impact the sedimentation of water bodies.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any comments? All in favor? 7-0.
275-10-42, impact on groundwater quality or quantity is recommended it meets their requirements because BMPs are proposed to not adversely impact either the quality or quantity of groundwater available to abutting properties or to the public water supply system.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any comments? All in favor? 7-0.
275-10-44, identification of freshwater wetlands is recommended meets the standard because proposed plans identify freshwater wetlands and the project is designed in such a way to minimize wetland impacts.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any comments? All in favor? 7-0.
275-10-46, recreation and open space is recommended meets the standard because proposed plans demonstrate that recreation and open space requirements have been met.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? Yes.
I guess if this applies, talking about the trails, has there been any decision made whether there's going to be any limit on the use, or is it going to be unlimited use for the trails?
There'll be non-motorized trails.
Non-motorized? Okay.
Yep.
Good. Thanks.
But open to the public.
Open to the public, yep.
Any other comments, discussion? All right, all in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7.1, utilization of the site is recommended it meets the standard because the layout for the proposed development takes into consideration existent topography and features of the site. Site grading is designed to minimize excessive cuts or fills and blends in with surrounding properties.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7.4 internal vehicular circulation is recommended that meets the standards because the layout for the proposed development takes into consideration existing topography and minimizes excessive cuts or fill and blends in with the surrounding properties.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7.10 utilities recommended meets the standards because adequate provisions shall be made for utility connections.
Motion to approve.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7.11 natural features is recommended it meets the standard because the layout for the proposed development takes into consideration existing topography and features of the site. Site grading is designed to minimize excessive cuts or fills and blends in with surrounding properties.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7.13 exterior lighting recommended it meets the standard because exterior lighting associated with proposed development shall be capped, shielded, directed downward, and retained on site.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7.14 solid waste disposal is recommended that meets the standard because solid waste is proposed to be deposited into enclosed dumpsters and removed by a private contractor.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7.15 landscaping. A landscape plan, is recommended that meets the standard because the landscape plan is part of the site plan and adequately meets the standard.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7.16 shoreline relationship is recommended that meets the standard because no work is proposed within the shoreline zone.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Motion, all in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7.17 technical and financial capacity recommended meets the standard because applicant has demonstrated adequate technical and financial capacity.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7.18 buffering recommended it meets the standard because adequate provisions are proposed to screen the development from surrounding residences.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
And that was it, and I did recognize a few more groups I could have made there.
I think you missed two on page one.
I was just about to make the same comment. You
Bring
actually,
that up. but-
you actually started on page 2. There's 2 items. Actually, the first one, and pollution and traffic conditions.
I apologize.
We have to start over again.
Jack might walk out.
275-10-31 pollution recommended it meets the standard because the layout for the proposed development takes into consideration existing topography and features of the site. Site grading is designed to minimize excessive cuts and fills and blends in with surrounding properties.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
275-10-35 traffic conditions is recommended that meets the standard because the applicant has demonstrated the development will not create hazards through vehicular or pedestrian traffic.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? Passes 7-0.
Can I make a comment before we go through the suggested motion? Or a question? Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do we need to put a condition on the approval of the zone change, since the site can't be approved without the zone change occurring, and we can't make the zone change.
It is added in the latest one.
You got an updated version.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Good question, though. Right?
Yes.
We ready for a suggested motion?
Yes, please.
The planning board accepts the information in the March 13, 2023 summary report, grant the requested waivers, and find the proposed major final subdivision a major final site plan application file number R570, 91, and 94 to create 83 market rate 1 and 2 bedroom apartments has satisfied the requirements of Article 11 of the subdivision ordinance and Article 16 of the zoning ordinance, subject to the submission of information and conditions described below. By May 15, 2023, unless other arrangements are made with the planning director, provide 5 copies of revised plans to the planning department that adequately respond to issues raised in the review, which are part of the following conditions of approval. A, the city council approves the zone change and contract zone and agreement. B, the applicant addresses all comments raised in the assistant city engineer's memo to the satisfaction of the assistant city engineer. C, the applicant addresses all comments raised in the code enforcement officer memo to the satisfaction of the code enforcement officer. D, the applicant addresses all comments raised in the Sanford Water District's memo to the satisfaction of the Sanford Water District. E, the applicant addresses all comments raised under the planner's comments on the summary memo dated March 14th, 2023 to the satisfaction of the interim planning director. F, planning board standard conditions of approval. Number 2, performance guarantee. Number 3, AutoCAD. Number 4, signed recorded plat. Number 5, approved permits from outside agencies. Number 6, inspection escrow. Number 7, pre-construction conference. Number 8, landscaping performance guarantee. And number 9, changes to the approved plan.
Motion to approve?
Right, is there any discussion on the suggested motion? Or on the motion? Right, all in favor? 7-0. All right, congratulations on this part.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Nice. We're moving on to new, so we're going to split some of these up. This is also on file R5-91 Nassau Apartments, but we're going to talk first about the zone change from single family to urban. Do you want to get us centered on that, please, Jamie?
Yep. So some of you planning board members will remember this. This actually came through the planning board the end of 2021. You guys voted to recommend the city council approve it. The reason it is coming back to you tonight is because since that date, the developers purchased that fourth lot, really their third lot, and that needs to be included in the zone change because it's part of the project. We had 2 options of just doing that one map and lot, but I thought it would be confusing to some people. So I thought it was cleaner to actually bring it back as all of them at once, just so the record remains clear. So basically, they're requesting approval for an amendment to the zoning map to rezone parcels R570, R591, R594, and L15-8, currently zoned as single-family residential, and they're requesting it to be zoned to urban on property located at 16 Summer Street and 23 Kirk Street in Springvale.
All right, before we turn it over to the applicant, did the city council already vote on our original?
They did not.
They did not.
It was never brought forward to city council. It was always the intent that both the single-family to urban and the urban to contract would be brought at the same time, because the council had concerns with blanketly approving urban zone because the commercial uses were too heavy of uses for that neighborhood. So they weren't comfortable with a blanket urban. They were only comfortable with the contract that then removes some of those commercial uses from the urban.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Does the applicant have anything to add to this discussion?
We can add to that a little bit. So it was probably over a year ago now. We had, I I think, 2 or 3 meetings with city council talking about this, and like Jamie said, the city council was not comfortable with just blanket urban zone. There are a lot of industrial, big commercial type uses that they didn't want there. So basically what we did was we went through Sanford's entire land use, every category they have for land use, and we went down one by one and said, are you comfortable with this? Are you comfortable with this? And got down to a finalized list that city council said, yes, we're comfortable with allowing these uses. And basically the uses that are allowed on that are residential, multifamily, there's some commercial. I think the commercial is like under 1,000 square feet or 1,500 square feet in a mixed use type application. So if it was an amenity to the property, or you had a first floor commercial with living space above. So that was all agreed upon, just never finalized. And it's been essentially sitting that way, waiting for us to get site plan approval to take it back to them and finalize it.
All right, thank you. Before we open the public hearing, do we have any concerns? I know it wasn't that long ago that we heard this.
No,
Right.
I guess I just had one question. Why do we have to go to urban in the first place? Isn't single-family a growth area that allows contract zones?
It does not.
Does not.
All right, I will declare the public hearing open. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of the, I'm assuming we'll do a public hearing on this. All right. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of the zone change from single-family residential to urban? Nobody on Zoom. Right, is there anybody who would like to speak against the zone change from single-family residential to urban?
Dan?
Dan, would you like to speak to your concern? Right? Is there anybody who would like to speak neither for nor against, but would like to make a comment? Just check to make sure we're having good comms with Zoom.
Dan, if you can't speak for whatever reason, if you type a message in the chat, we do have somebody that would be able to see that. Oh, disregard.
What's his face back there?
Is there anybody who would like to speak from the public on Zoom? All right, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and we can move on to the suggested motion.
The planning board accepts the information in the March 13, 2023 summary report and recommends that the city council rezone parcels R5-70, R5-91, R5-94, and L15-8 from the single-family residential zone to the urban zone to allow for the renovation and redevelopment of the existing buildings for multifamily and neighborhood accessory uses with conditions that limit the range of commercial industrial uses that are allowed on the 2 larger parcels.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? None opposed, 7-0. Right. Congratulations on this piece. Right, so our next item will be the zone change or the contract zone from urban to the contract zone. So, Orneos, please.
So the applicant is requesting approval for a zone change under the provisions of City Code Chapter 280-10-4, contract zoning on tax map R5, lots 70, 91, and 94.
Do a public hearing for this as well? All right, I'll declare the public hearing open again. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this zone change from urban to contract zone? Anybody who would like to speak against the change from from urban to contract zone? Anybody who would like to speak neither for nor against, but would like to make a comment or ask a question about the change from urban to contract zone? Right, hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed.
So as was previously discussed in the last zone change, this has been in discussion for a year and a half or so at this point. They have had multiple discussions with City Council. In their application, they provided at the time the most recent version draft of the contract zoning agreement. I since then added an amended version that was back and forth from the city attorney and their attorney last Thursday, so there was just a few very minor changes between the one that was in their application and the one that I proposed. Just a side note, the city council still can make adjustments to this if they so choose at the city council level, but that is the most current version that we have at this time. Site Plan Review Committee did meet yesterday and did recommend unanimously for you guys to approve this and pass it on to City Council.
Right. Do you want to read us the motion, please?
Yeah. The Planning Board accepts the information in the March 13, 2023 summer report and recommends the City Council rezone parcels R570, R591, and R594 from the urban zone to a contract zone to allow for the renovation and redevelopment of the existing buildings for multifamily and neighborhood accessory uses with conditions that limit the range of commercial industrial uses that are allowed on the two larger parcels.
Motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? None opposed? 7-0. All right. Just to clarify, those two items, we didn't approve them for approving. We approved to send them off to council for consideration.
Great. I'd just like to make a comment too. Chris and I really appreciate the support from Sanford during this. This has been a year and a half now, and really the town has gone out of their way to help us. And as we look for the future of our business, where we want to dedicate our time and money, it's we definitely want to do a lot more projects in this town. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good luck.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So moving down the agenda, we have item 3 and item 4 are going to remain on the table. Is that true? Okay. So moving on to other business, planning director's report.
Basically, same story I've been saying the last couple of meetings now. We are now starting to get all the applications I said that would be coming in. So we are continuing to hold large numbers of pre-application meetings. We've gotten 4 or 5 applications in the last week and a half. Some for staff level, some for site plan, some for all the way through. So I continue to say we're going to have a pretty busy period ahead of us. I think Beth, last time, did I say last time that she's been approved for 5 hours a week? She's still on that work schedule. She is currently working on mineral extraction ordinances to hopefully get that finalized so that we can get it back to you guys first in a work session to do your final work session on it. And hopefully that's the last one, and then push it forward for actually approval. We did some planner interviews to replace Kyle's position. We had some favorable applicants. We're hopeful that something materializes from that. But I'm pretty hopeful. I think that's it.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. All right, so moving on to communications. Does anybody have anything they'd like to discuss? All right, I guess the one thing that I'll just throw out there, and we can continue to chew on this a bit. We have projects with a ton of conditions, right? We have a lot of conditions here that ultimately they're coming to us because there's concerns by staff, and then we're going to approve it, and then it goes to staff to be the bottleneck. And I just want to consider, I know it's just the way we've been doing it for 4 years that I've been on the board. This has been the way we've kind of done things. But we're pushing some undone type of concerns onto staff to have to field while they're currently doing their jobs and working on the next projects. So it doesn't really sit just with us. There's a lot of people in the chop chain for this. But something we should start to have discussions, probably larger than this group, and probably start having these discussions with Jamie as to how are we going to approach this. But
Can I ask a question on that topic?
sure.
What happens if the applicant and the staff member do not get along? Or as far as the applicant cannot satisfy the staff member's concerns, what recourse do they have? What happens?
Ultimately, they would have to ask for an amendment to their approval and come back to you guys and seek that amendment. So when we're on the topic, I welcome this discussion. I've been with the town for 15 years now, so I've been through many different phases of how business is done. And everything we do today is in the interest of being business friendly. As a community, we've been trying to become business friendly forever. And I still ask for anybody to define what business friendly really means. Because there's certain people that think business friendly means everybody says yes and they walk in, they walk out, everybody's happy. I agree that when I first started, stuff wouldn't get approved with lots of conditions. It always had to go through more than one meeting. There was time in between the meetings to prepare the new plan so that there was actually a clean plan for not only you guys, but for the staff to review. It does put a lot of, I'll say, time burden on individual staff members after the fact to do individual reviews. And part of the problem with individual reviews is, for instance, to the satisfaction of the city engineer. So he's looking at it in his purview. He doesn't necessarily know what Alex is looking at for code enforcement. So he might go ahead and say, oh, this looks wonderful. Meanwhile, code enforcement hasn't seen the plan yet. As soon as we see it, we say, wow, this is a problem. But it could have already been approved by the city engineer. So I truly feel that yes, I understand we did it to be business friendly. But in some cases, it takes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times longer to work through the conditions of approval after the fact than if we table it, say, okay, work it through with your consultants and come back. Because if you tell a consultant we're waiting on him, they might go ahead and rush that project to get his applicant approved, whereas once somebody hears I'm approved, they're approved. But they're approved with, in some cases, pages and pages of conditions. Now, you'll notice that I've done my conditions of approval slightly different than Beth. Beth lists all the memos out line by line by line by line, which I'm not saying which way is right. I think it's easier and quicker just to say the way I do it. I'm not saying her way is wrong. But I mean, if you look at all those memos, there's a lot of conditions that staff was concerned about. At site plan yesterday, they already had some of them addressed on a plan set that we hadn't seen, and over the course of the day, they sent a plan to me and Matt this afternoon at like 4 o'clock with some of the stuff they showed on their slides. So this consultant is very rapid fire corrections. But say we would have said, okay, you're tabled, fix this stuff, bring it back. In 2 weeks, you could have come back with a clean plan and had a clean approval without having to deal with all these conditions of approval. So while I agree we did it to be business friendly, I also agree that maybe it is time to rethink is it really business-friendly, or are we actually causing the applicant more time and headache than by not doing it that way?
Do we need to meet with the council to discuss this? I mean, we've been talking about meeting with the council forever, and they don't seem to want to do it, because I would like to know what their definition is of business-friendly.
So that depends on which council member you ask, what day. So I've asked that question to council members, to citizens, to developers, to staff, to everybody under the sun. And really, the true answer, in my opinion, is for a municipality to be fair and precise in what we ask of people. So I don't think you have to rubber stamp a yes to be business friendly. I think we just have to be fair and precise in what we initially tell them we need, meaning you don't change the line as they go. They have to know up front what they need, and then you have to review it in a fair and timely fashion. To me, that's being business friendly.
Well, it's like that out on Route 4, that guy that wanted to put in baseball fields.
Yep.
There was a lot of stuff that he couldn't do, but you and Beth worked on, you can't do this, but you could do that.
Right.
Of course, it never went anywhere.
That's business friendly.
Yes.
So every single day in the codes office, me and Alex spent countless hours talking with people. And a code officer's job is a very tough job, because you can't do everything you want to do. What sets you apart is that when you say, you can't do this, but how about we think about maybe doing it this way instead? And I would almost say 8, 9 times out of 10, we find a way to make it work. It might not be the exact way they thought they wanted to do it when they walked in the office, but in the end, they're like, wow, this is actually better. So that is what, to me, business friendly is taking the time to listen to them, setting the rules up front so you don't change the rules as you go, and then work the process smoothly throughout it. And in the end, I think that's as close to being business friendly as a municipality can be, and still dance the dance that we all have to do.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with everything you just said, and my thoughts are not necessarily that we need to change the process and what we're doing, but maybe it's the timeline, right? Maybe it's site plan review was yesterday. Any changes that we asked for, they've got so little time to get them done.
Yeah.
I think in this case, like I have these comments are not based on tonight's project, right? I'm very confident that they heard what was asked for and they've made a lot of the changes, but it's more of just the, we say we're done, like we sign off and it's done. It's not done, right? We're sending down stuff that's half done, and it's left up to staff to now pick up that and move it forward. So from a business-friendly standpoint, I'm not saying we change the rules, but maybe we put the order of operations so that when it comes to us, we approve it, everybody's happy and we're done. Because if it takes 3 weeks for everybody to sign it, or a month for everybody to be satisfied with it, well, they really didn't get it any faster. They got our part faster, but I think we're probably not the slow point in this process.
I think years ago, when Jim Galnack was here, I don't think it was site plan on Tuesday and planning board on Wednesday. There was a separation. I don't remember exactly.
It was that 2-week separation. It was.
That was recommended by a consultant. I don't know if any of you remember a discussion last year. I think it took place between the city council and Beth, because there were some issues that came up. And I think the consultant actually recommended as much as a month, or some other timeline between the site plan and the planning board.
That is correct. We had a private study done,
Yeah.
and that was one of their recommendations, is that we go back to the way it used to be.
In all fairness, I mean, there's been a few select applications where there's been political pressure, without naming names, but it's just pressure to get that approval, and that's where those conditions came from.
Oh, I agree 100%.
It's approved, and they can say they approved it, but then let everybody else worry about the details.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Oh,
know
yeah.
we've been
All
trying
the
to get that.
process was amended to become business-friendly. I'm just saying that now that years have passed, I think it would be a good time to look back and say, really, did this achieve our goal, or do we have to rethink it again and try something maybe try something new, maybe go back to the way it was and try that again. I don't know the answer, but I do think it would be a good conversation to have at some point to try to see if everybody agrees that we should rethink the process a little.
It would
Honestly-
be better to take political pressure off the process and just let the process work.
Right.
That's what needs to happen.
So the city council every year does city council goals. One of their goals this year is to fix the roadblocks. So the city council will be actively trying to do their own brainstorming on how to fix the roadblocks. So I think it's good timing because their goal is to try to figure out what might need tweaking. And if it's also you guys' goal to try to figure out what might need tweaking, it might actually happen.
No, I appreciate that, and we'll have to start laying down some groundwork to figure this out. But honestly, I think it makes us more business-friendly if they come here, they hear what we have to say, we finish this up, we hit them approved, and they walk out ready, right? Instead of, it's an unknown. We have no idea how long it's going to take for staff to have the time to do this work. It could be easy fixes, but, you know.
I can just add to that a little bit. I think, from my perspective, one of the bigger concerns is, if we do have those conditions, or even if we have the 2 weeks, 1 month in between, it's the coordination of it all as far as, like Jamie said before, if I'm looking at it from my perspective and I give it the thumbs up, that doesn't mean something that I had them change, affects codes or even affects your opinion. So, I mean, I think I've heard enough projects now where your questions and comments, have certain themes, so I can kind of, take a guess at those as far as like, I'm not going to have an applicant change something to put it right on the lot line because I know, a lot of the time we're talking about screening and stuff like that. It's not necessarily engineering, but, I keep that in mind because I'm not going to tell them to do something that I know isn't going to work for you guys or for codes, So it's the coordination that's really tough when there's a giant list of conditions and then we don't have like a formal meeting.
To reconcile all of them.
Exactly, yeah. So it's, it'd be nice to have like the final meeting to, come together and make sure everybody's happy, like you said, and go from there, but.
All right, no, I appreciate that. Appreciate your input. All right, we've beaten this to death. There's nothing we can solve tonight, but I'm glad that I think we're all on the same page as to kind of what's wrong with this process and how we can make it better. So, any other communications? All right, I'll move us to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I just moved.
I'm going to back that up.
Second.
Second that one.
All right, all in favor?